very happy by the fact the turnaround is kind of happening. Disappointed by the fact that it just took too long. And I think, one of the things that we underestimated going into this was the cultural change that was required within the company. And that is a big, big one. Because when you run a ship of 145,000 people, it's a lot of people. And I think we kind of underestimated the impact that it's going to have on the 145,000 people to kind of march in one direction. It just took time.
It took time, the cultural bit you say, but if you actually look at the 2 successive quarters that you've had good quarters. The worst is perhaps behind you in your biggest markets. You've narrowed the gap with your peers. Is it ready to declare success yet? Or would you want to be again very cautious?
Not yet. We are far away from that actually. Because I've been very clear.
What will it take for you to declare success?
I've been very clear about it. Till we have 4 successive quarters of 4 to 4.5% growth, I don't think we can say that it's a secular trend as far as we are concerned. That's the critical one. Now we see signs of that, but we are far away from it yet. So there's a lot of work yet to be done.
Lot of work yet to be done, and I guess that's the reason why your boss keeps you on your toes. Mr. Premji doesn't do interviews anymore, so I'm going to take the liberty of asking you. You did say you're happy with the progress made, you're disappointed it took so long. The last time I interviewed him, I asked him, when is the turnaround quarter going to happen? You had 2 good successive quarters. I know you want to wait for 4 or 5 successive quarters for secular growth to kick in. Is he giving you tough time still, or is he happy patting your back now?
The funny thing about Mr. Premji is, surprisingly, he's been extremely supportive. There's this notion that with Mr. Premji that if you don't perform before you know you're out on the street on your backside. That's really not true. So I think he's been extremely supportive of what's going on. I think he understands the challenge that we've had, and to that extent I think he's been very, very supportive of all the actions that we've taken till now.
He's supportive, yes, but he's also a tough taskmaster, if I may. Just to talk to you about your quarters, just to talk to you about your growth, is this largely on the back of demand pickup in some of the bigger economies? And also, or is this because of the steps that kick in? I'm going to speak to you of Davos and the demand pickup also after this.
There are a couple of things. One is that clearly the markets, if you go back 3, 4, 5 years ago, there was gloom and doom all across. And in a gloomy scenario, sentiment doesn't necessarily kind of spur spending.
That's right.
Luckily for us, I think the human mind has now hit a stage where people are saying that, listen, we've been depressed for too long. Let's get a little positive. So that positive nature of what's happening with demand is kind of creeping into our markets also. Now, right now what we're seeing is secular demand coming up primarily from discretionary demand for us is kind of kicking in. But I guess the question for us is really this, that we don't know how long this would last. And maybe that's caution, because in the past we've seen several false dawns and they really haven't materialized. This time it looks a little real. We just hope it will continue.
As you mentioned dawns and sunrises, I'm going to ask you this question. You've been in back-to-back meetings, jet setting from Paris to Zurich, now in Davos, meeting your key clients. You say demand is beginning to pick up. You obviously want to be cautious. You don't want to celebrate and call it euphoria yet. How is this beginning to pick up? Are order sizes changing? Is the duration changing? What is really changing in terms of demand?
There are 2 kinds of business that you see. You have what we call run the business kind of demand. Run the business demand is typically demand which comes from application maintenance, BPO, IMS deals, which are infrastructure management deals, which continue for long periods. These are 4 to 5 year deals. That section of the market is under huge pressure for pricing. Because fundamentally that segment is getting commoditized. The new development which is coming in, things like the big themes that some institutions are going after, things like resiliency, those people are now beginning to spend money on. And I think that's where the opportunity is kind of kicking in. So we believe that across the world, people are going to spend far more money in really making sure their businesses are going to be resilient for the future. That's a big area of opportunity. And we see spending happening in that space.
And is this happening in your traditional markets like a US, like a Europe?
It's happening in every business that is infrastructure critical for a country. So it's happening in banking, it's happening in utilities, it's happening in process industry, it's right across. If
I can ask you, Wipro has gone through a lot of organizational tinkering. Are you now happy with where you are now, or do you still believe more rejig, more reorganizational thinking needs to
Actually, it's kind of surprising that you asked that question, because we really haven't gone through too much of rejigging. Our structures are very clear. We make 2 organizational announcements every year. One of them is going to be in the September-October timeframe. One of them is in the March-April timeframe. We don't make org announcements in between. And all our org announcements are planned for the next 2 years. The roadmap is ready. Now, how it's going to play out in terms of announcements, I would just kind of let you watch that particular space.
Without giving me a headline here.
Absolutely not.
Because the headline on reorganization is really coming from the other IT cousin Infosys. I'm not going to touch upon that. I want to specifically speak to you about headcounts. You've cautiously restrained on going for this overboard hiring, whereas TCS is going to touch, the 3 lakh figure now. It's a conscious decision yet, but is it a decision that you're looking to revisit anytime soon?
No.
And why not?
See, there are 2 parts to it. One is, if you look at it, our run the business component has always been very, very low. For us, change has been big. If you look at change, our belief is that fundamentally the kind of skills that are required and the kind of models that you need for executing projects have completely changed. So in the past, we used to run pyramids. Now we run things like hourglasses, because what happens is you require really experienced people sitting in front of the customer. And then in the back, you can run a pyramid. But in the front of the customer, you really require people who can lead the customer through the journey.
Sure.
And that's why we believe that the number of people that we have for execution, we always believe that we have to be really focused on. So that's an area where using tools, using more, machine learning, we are able to really cut down the number of people that we deploy.
But as demand picks up, like you yourself said, and as the nature of demand also picks up, companies in the world want more resilience. Will you not look to have more people on board, or do you think you have enough strength to cater to rising demand?
If you look at our utilization today, it's very comfortable. I can increase utilization to the extent of 5 to 6% and not miss a heartbeat. So I have enough headspace.
So Wipro is not looking to hire.
So we'll continue to hire the same numbers that we hired last time. We haven't missed a single date that we've committed to our potential hires. We've kept those dates for the past 3 years. We continue to keep our dates in the future. We continue to announce salary increases on 1 day every year. So we've been very, very, kind of regular about all that.
As far as your acquisitions are concerned, the big one was SAIC, and the ones after that were really the mostly tucked under ones. Is that a conscious? Of course, that's a conscious strategy. Will we see that strategy going forward? Will we see some changes happen? Anything on your radar that looks interesting?
I'm very uncomfortable aggregating for growth. I'd like to really aggregate for value. So if you look at the last acquisition that we did, which is Opus, it is very clearly fell in the mortgage space. So in the mortgage space, we believe there's an opportunity right now to build a leadership position. So all the acquisitions that we can do to fill the gaps there, we would do. And that's the segment that we'll go after. Like this, we have a couple of other segments that we're chasing. So wherever we get a segment where we can make an acquisition, big or small, we'll make it.